Hello and welcome back to the channel, David's Insight. Another weekly Vigilantes episode has just dropped in per usual. I'll be reviewing the episode 4, titled, Top Runner. As usual, before I get into the episode, it's worth mentioning that I am an anime-only fan of the show. So with that being said, the episode kicks off late at night where a trio of creepy villains called the Three Sturm und Drang brothers are sliding around the streets and upskirting several young women. Their celebration of their lecherous crime spree is put to stop by Knuckleduster, who knocks all three of the criminals out with a few swift punches in which was highly deserved. I find it dark how the show is starting to follow a consistent theme of sexual harassment and practically brushing it off as a joke or comedic, which is tending to ruin that part of the episode and leave a bitter taste in your mouth. Anyways, accompanying Knuckleduster is the Crawler and Popstep, with the boy checking and disconfirming any signs of trigger usage, and the girl asking the saved bystanders to call the police so they can arrest the defeated brothers. Knuckleduster is oddly quiet and serious throughout the ordeal and simply tells his teammates to keep moving now that the fight is over, which the Crawler presumes is due to his previous, sudden hunt for a person with a B-quirk during that spontaneous outbreak of instant villains from before, which really makes you question who this girl and what her backstory is, especially since we see later that she's in cahoots with All for One. The man's attitude problem carries over to the next morning, while he and his protege are doing boxing training. After Koichi has some issues with the fact that his combat style doesn't mesh very well with Knuckleduster's training methods, the vigilante coldly tells the student to find some other way to keep himself alive during a fight. The two then switch off with Knuckleduster on the offense and Koichi on defense, with the boy easily being overwhelmed and soon gets knocked to the ground. While Popstep has some concerns that Koichi might sustain lethal injuries during training, the young man reassures that his master is actually holding back a lot when they spar or when he fights villains, as he knows Knuckleduster could easily kill someone if he punched with his full force. While he thinks it's no big deal, Pop still thinks the old man is still going too far. Elsewhere in the city, Keen is walking around while conversing with her boss, who I'm presuming is All for One on the phone. The man criticizes her previous usage of trigger that caused the swarm instant villains from a few days ago, saying that the drug is costly and she should be more conservative and tactful about how she distributes it. The girl doesn't understand since she was tasked with gathering combat data using the narcotic, and the man clarifies that they need to focus on people that possess a strong will and passionate quirks. While Keen thinks it's a pain seeking people out like that, she takes her boss's advice and finds a person who she feels fits the bill later that night, a random street junkie, whose anger is starting to boil over from the girl talking to him. The villain then pulls 3 vials out of her jacket and stabs it into his neck, as she tells the guy to funnel all that rage and power so he can tell society what he truly feels. The drug immediately takes effect, as the man's muscles begin to swell and he tries to hit her with an enlarged, purple forearm. Keen takes her leave and tells him to take her advice or do whatever he feels, as the man's body fully transforms and he begins terrorizing the inner city. The junkie runs towards the Crawler and immediately targets him, taking a swing at him, with the vigilante barely managing to dodge. Per his advice, Popstep begins leading the civilians away from the instant villain, while Koichi tries to stall him while saving another person in the process. Before the villain can harm Koichi and the civilian, Knuckleduster swings in and kicks the criminal in the face, which sends him crashing into a nearby building. The villain pops out of the structure angrier than ever, as he channels some sparking energy into his arm and swings at the pair of vigilantes. Koichi suggests keeping distance since the guy's boosted quirk is too powerful to fight head-on, but Knuckleduster prefers the opposite and starts engaging the villain in close combat. While the man manages to get some light hits in on the villain, the damage from him barely dodging the criminal's attacks has started to add up. Now this fight scene was very fluid and enjoyable to watch. The junkie soon gets greedy as he stops to power up another punch for a potential finishing move, which gives Knuckleduster enough time and spacing to dodge the incoming hit and knock the instant villain out cold with a clean hit to the face. Now there wasn't really much strategy behind this fight like the others, so although enjoyable, it did feel unrealistic. Knuckleduster notes the villain's cockiness, and how dangerous he was due to his speed, power, and temperament, as he cheers from the prospect of fighting opponents on same tier of strength as this guy, and thus Knuckleduster gains his spunk back. The next morning, his mood and energy gets back to normal during sparring, as he tells the students that he was just getting bored beating up street thugs that barely put up a fight. Koichi is glad his teacher is feeling himself again, but Pop still thinks he's going overboard in combat training. In a cafe, Keen is once again talking with her boss, this time complaining that the instant villain she made last night was intercepted by the Narahata Vigilantes, and tells her superior that Knuckleduster is becoming a huge problem for them. He argues that it's beneficial to keep them around, as it allows them to gather data without the intervention of heroes or the police. While Keen rightfully points out that the trio of impromptu heroes are intent on taking down their operation, the man just asks her to work around it. Keen is then approached by a nervous, blushing salaryman asking if she's the honey he's supposed to meet up with here. The high schooler eagerly confirms her identity and begins walking with him out of the establishment, as she's excited to cut loose and get to whatever they have planned together. A lot of mystery behind this scene. Later that night, a sharp-toothed villain is shown running on the highway and weaving through traffic at high speeds. After surveying the area and confirming that there are no nearby civilians, returning INGENIUM is deployed from his team's truck and pursues the offender at rocketing speed. The hero moves in for a grab, but the villain dodges and gloats that the man needs to run like his life is on the line if he wants to catch him. The criminal kicks INGENIUM in the head and speeds off, as the hero crashes into a nearby wall and his airbags deploy. Although their target escaped, INGENIUM is glad he and his team installed those airbags into his costume. Early next morning, Koichi is out for a jog and takes the lack of civilians around him as an opportunity to practice his usage of slide and glide, primarily in figuring out how to brake properly. He is then spooked by a speeding jogger he was trying to pass, but is saved from a nasty fall into the once again conveniently placed trash by the same man catching him. After resting at a nearby park, the man introduces himself to Koichi as Tensei Ida, the turbo hero, INGENIUM. The man then asks Koichi about the tumble he was about to take earlier and asks about his quirk. We then get to find out more about his quirk as Koichi explains that slide and glide uses a repellent force he expels from his limbs to propel his movement. He adds that he has no issue moving in different directions, which impresses the hero as he and his little brother always struggle with turning at high speeds, in which we get a scene of young Tenya which was quite amusing. Koichi tells Tensei about his issues with braking and says that he's unable to slow down naturally if he's moving too fast. Tensei quickly finds a solution to the student's issue by advising him to propel slide and glide's force in the opposite direction if he wants to manually decelerate. Koichi applies his advice and is grateful that such a quick fix has eliminated a problem he had for years when it came to using his quirk. As the young man practices more, Tensei commends how flexible his quirk is for advanced movement, though Koichi doubts that an increase in speed matters much. The hero heavily disagrees and asks Koichi about the people caught in villain attacks or disasters, and what they might be thinking during those times. The student assumes they're asking to be saved, but Tensei believes it's more specific than that, they're asking to be saved fast. The hero believes speed is most important when helping someone, as it not only gets them to safety, but it also gives them a constant sense of hope that they'll be saved no matter what. Tensei offers Koichi his business card and a place at his agency after he graduates, as he thinks slide and glide is a quirk that can be well suited for hero work. Koichi tells him that he doesn't have a hero license, but the man says that he can slowly work his way up to proper certification slowly if he takes the job on his support staff. Tensei says the student would fit right in, as Team Ida 10 prides itself in taking up people who wish to use their quirks to help others and giving them a specialized place on the team to bring out the best in their abilities and their drive to save people. That same night, INGENIUM is once again chasing the villain running on the highway from before. The hero is running a lot faster than yesterday, as he removed the airbags from his suit to reduce weight, despite his team's warnings. The villain is gleeful that the hero took his comment about risking his life for extra speed to heart, but INGENIUM says otherwise. Up ahead, a padded roadblock was set up on the road by his team, as he overtakes the criminal and flies into it. As INGENIUM turns to pin down the villain, the speeder unfurls his bat wings and flies off into the night and towards the eastern part of Narahata. Despite their best efforts to corner and track him, the villain easily evades Team Ida 10 and uses the maze-like layout of the ward and the lack of light to mask his trail. As he gloats once again about his speed, the crawler slides in and trips the villain, before being knocked unconscious by Knuckleduster. INGENIUM and one of his teammates eventually find the villain restrained and look up to see the trio of vigilantes looking down at them. Koichi and Knuckleduster tell the heroes that catching villains here is easier for them since they're used to operating in the dark. They state that they're here to lend a hand to the messes that the heroes are unable to deal with. As the three take off, with Popstep quickly declaring that she has nothing to do with her teammates' actions, INGENIUM realizes the crawler's true identity. Now as for my thoughts on that, I did feel like it was highly unnecessary for the crawler to take off his mask only for the next day to act oblivious. Furthermore, surely INGENIUM can get into trouble as well as be reprimanded for letting the vigilantes go just like that. Tensei tries to thank Koichi directly for his work prior, by catching up to him on his morning jog. The student tries to deny his secret identity to the hero, but Tensei is thankfully understanding of his keeping his status as a vigilante away from potential exposure. The hero then asks Koichi for his business card back, as he believes the student has already found a place to belong to and doesn't feel like getting in the way of it. Koichi is still severely disappointed about the request for his business card back, which didn't exactly make sense to me. Nonetheless, Tensei tries to cheer him up with a race to the next corner on their jogging path. The hero speeds off, with Koichi desperately trying to catch up to him in their spontaneous race. And with that, the episode comes to a close. Now as for my thoughts about the episode, I would say it was my least favorite so far out of the bunch. The episode had no overall contribution towards the story. There could have been more plot points set up had Koichi not taken off his mask. And I do believe INGENIUM's role in this episode was relevantly pointless. However, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed his appearance. Furthermore, the episode almost felt as if I was watching two different episodes, with the latter focusing more on INGENIUM and the former surrounding Keen. Speaking of Keen, she was enjoyable and entertaining to watch this episode. I do enjoy her personality. Finally, although he missed an opportunity, we did get to see some growth and development in Koichi's quirk, which felt wholesome. And those were my thoughts on the episode, a bit of mixed feelings about it. I give this episode a 5.8 out of 10. The next episode looks quite gripping. It seems we may finally get some possible backstory on Pop Step, who's been in the shadows, and we also see a new interesting character facing that returning rock villain from episode 2. We have now come to the end of the video. If you liked it, please be sure to leave a like, comment your opinion on the episode down below and smash that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching this video.